Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for Infinite Lagrange. This video is sponsored by NetEase, and if you're concerned about what that means for my content, please check out the public release I have placed on my Discord, linked in the description down below. That should hopefully assuage any fears that you may happen to have. Anyway, in today's video for Infinite Lagrange, we're going to be taking a look at super capital ships, primarily battle cruisers, and talking about the differences between these and the standard frigates, destroyers and cruisers, etc. that you may already be used to. Now, of course, I am running with the assumption here that you've already watched my video on how to unlock and upgrade your ships, and you understand how blueprints and all of this kind of works as well, because we're going to be talking about the differences between these ships, so you need to understand the core ships before we can talk about how these ones are different, if that makes sense. Anyway, if you do enjoy this video and other Infinite Lagrange content, please make sure to hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel for more of it, dinging the notification bell and selecting all notifications so that you never miss an upload. If you're a big fan of Infinite Lagrange as well, please make sure you come and join us on our Discord, linked in the description as well. We do have some Infinite Lagrange chat rooms there where people can talk about the game, get an idea, talk about the different ships, join some unions, that kind of thing. It's a great way to hang out and just to get to know other people. Of course, do make sure you're joining the official Infinite Lagrange Discord as well. It's a very active group there, great people there, well worth checking out. Anyway, with all of that said and done then, let's talk about super capital ships and battle cruisers. Now, first things first, we need to jump into the base itself and actually talk about how you build these ships. Now, like with most ships, you are going to need to have a type of ship production line. You're going to need a shipyard. Now, this will actually arrive here at base level 7. You'll see here at base level 7 on the right hand side, and apologies, I'm very low on resources at the moment, so a lot of my text is red on black, which I know makes it a little bit difficult to read. Not much I can do about that right now, unfortunately. Anyway, here at base level 7, you have access to the super capital shipyard and the battle cruiser dockyard. Now, prior to this, you've only had capital shipyards. Now, capital shipyards can build small and medium utility ships. They can build frigates, destroyers, cruisers, corvettes, and aircraft. They cannot build super capitals. In order to build a super capital, you are going to have needed to have unlocked the super capital shipyard. You'll see here at level 1, it unlocks that super capital shipyard, which is another construction queue. Beyond this, upgrading this as well will reduce the time required to actually build these ships, and trust me, some of these super capitals take a long time to build. We're talking upwards 12-13 hours here. These are big, expensive ships that take a lot of resources and a lot of time to put together. Now, in addition to having the super capital shipyard unlocked, you're also going to need to have the battle cruiser dockyard. Just like if you want to build destroyers, you're going to need to have the destroyer dockyard and things like that. This just unlocks that capability to build these particular ships. If, for whatever reason, you didn't want to build any battle cruisers, you only wanted the super capital shipyard for its ability to build cruisers and carriers, then you might decide that, for whatever reason, you decide to skip the battle cruiser dockyard. Obviously, you need to get this to level 1 in order to upgrade your base to tech level 8, but you might decide that you stop there because you're not really going to be using battle cruisers. This unlocks the ability to produce battle cruisers in a super capital shipyard, and upgrading it will increase both the repair speed and reduce the battle cruiser building time. It's a really useful thing for that if you want to be building these ships. Because again, if it's got, say, a 12-hour build time and you can reduce that by 10%, that's a lot of time cut off. Now, as we go down to tech level 8 here, you can see I'm still waiting to upgrade to this here on this Tech 2 server, but you'll see in the industrial district here, there is also the carrier dockyard. This, of course, is required to build carrier ships, and above it, you'll have the utility platform dockyard, which is really confusingly named, because what this actually allows you to do is build large utility ships, not anything to do with utility platforms. It is just, utility platform is the name for whatever reason they've given those large utility ships. Both of those, the utility platform dockyard and the carrier dockyard, piggyback off the super capital shipyard. You will need to have built that shipyard first of all. Now, with that built, you'll notice that if we go into ship production, in addition to the usual queues here on the left-hand side, we now have an additional queue on the right-hand side. Now, if I wanted to build a super capital, I cannot do so in a capital shipyard. You'll see here I get frigates, I get destroyers, I get cruisers, I get the various different types of utility ships here, but there are no battle cruisers or carriers or anything listed here in a standard capital shipyard. Obviously, the same is true when it comes to the aircraft list as well. You will have, once you've unlocked the super supercapital ship shipyard, this is it here on the right hand side. You can see mine is currently building an Eternal Storm, which is the Jupiter Industries battlecruiser. I've just fancied giving I've just unlocked it. I fancied giving it a bit of a whirl and a try. Now you'll notice that these are very high on the military port command points, and the Eternal Storm here 32, the ST-59 I think is the cheapest at 28, the Spear of Uranus and the Constantine the Great are both at 35, so these are going to chew through a lot of your military command points. Therefore it is well worth making sure that you're upgrading your dockyard as well, in order to have those additional military command points to actually use these. Now, as an interesting aside, it's worth noting that the supercapital shipyard can also build cruisers. It's not really an efficient use of this shipyard. It builds at the same speed as the other shipyards, but the simple point is, if you can only build supercapitals in the supercapital shipyards, and cruisers can be built in a standard capital shipyard, I would rather be using a standard capital shipyard to build my cruisers and leave this available for the others. But if for whatever reason you happen to have all three of the basic capital shipyards there queued up with all kinds of other ships and you needed to build some cruisers in a pinch, you can use the supercapital shipyard for that too. Anyway, so there we are. That is how you actually go about building and constructing these ships. Let's actually have a look at their blueprints and how this differs from other ships that we've already seen in Infinite Lagrange. Now, first of all then, let's go into the ship blueprint. And you'll notice that right at the top here, we start with carriers. Carriers are aircraft carriers. They launch corvettes, they launch aircraft, and they get all kinds of crazy bonuses to those. We'll talk about those briefly later. I want to talk about battlecruisers first of all, and these are found just below. Now you can see here, I have 4 battlecruisers unlocked. I have the Noma Shipping Group's Spear of Uranus, I have the Antonius Consortium's Constantine the Great, I have the Jupiter Industries Eternal Storm, and the generic blueprint ST-59. The ST-59 you actually get as part of the Battle Pass, or in what the first Battle Pass had a box of it at the end. It's quite a straightforward one to get, so it's the one we're going to have a look at here first of all. It's not my personal favourite, but it does have some really cool uses, which I will touch on briefly. Now you'll notice that when we look at the blueprint here for the ST-59 defensive battlecruiser, this follows the same rules that we've seen in other blueprints. If you're not sure about how blueprints work, please do check out my video on how blueprints work, also how to unlock and how to upgrade new ships. I am assuming that you've already watched those. Check the links in the description as well, that'll take you across to those particular videos. Now here we have the ST-59. You'll notice most of it looks exactly the same. We've got the same main version numbers, tech points, all this kind of things. I will talk about the number 2 there in the left hand side when it comes to what would normally be the different variants in just a moment. As we look at the firepower stats, basic stats, combat rolls, all this kind of thing, these are exactly the same as any other ship previous to this. In fact, if we go into any of the upgrades here, so if we go, for example, the large cannon platform, you'll see that you can still upgrade these, all these different weapons. There are lots of different weapons on a battlecruiser. Here, that large cannon platform has 2 different versions to it. You can enhance, obviously, with your tech points here, and you can upgrade with the blueprints. Then we have our main weapon, like here, I've got an assault torpedo launcher. Again, we can upgrade this using blueprints, the weapon blueprints. We can enhance it here at the bottom as well with all our different options and abilities. There's some really nasty ones here. I love that rapid fire strategy. It is absolutely terrifying. But what you'll have noticed is that actually there is a little thing at the top here that says blueprint design. This is where that main version number is actually a little bit misleading compared to what we've seen before. Whereas before, the main version number is in regards to different varieties of the same ship. So for example, if I come down here to the AC-721, you can see that main version number is 3 because I've got the generic type, the missile type, and the aircraft type. And it's the same with some of the others here, like the Eris, for example. I've got the cannon type, the armoured type, and I'm partway towards the heavy cannon type. That 2 there is in regards to variants. Now, when it comes to a battlecruiser, that 2 is obviously not regarding variants in the same way that it is with other ships. With other ships, you get a different blueprint that takes that same ship and just modifies it to do a different role. With battlecruisers, you have one main blueprint that you can then modify with modules. So if you tap on this, you'll see that you get the options here to modify your ship in all kinds of cool and crazy different ways. So if I have a look here at the assault torpedo system, you'll see that I've actually unlocked this. This is not the basic weapon system that the ST-59 comes with. It starts off actually with an assault railgun system. And you can have a look at this, and you can tap into it, you can read its stats and see what it does and what it targets. And here the ST-59 defensive battlecruisers railgun there, that SR-2600, It's a really powerful weapon. There's no lying about it. That is a really powerful heavy weapon that does a lot of damage. I was lucky enough to have upgraded, to have unlocked an assault torpedo system, and when I started to upgrade this, I realised that it pulled ahead quite dramatically on the stats. You can see the combat stats here at the bottom. We're looking at 10,500 anti-ship damage and 3,360 on siege, whereas here we're putting that siege down a little bit, which is fine. I'm not using this in sieges overly. I'm using this more as sort of a frontliner and a combat ship. I have other ships that have the siege damage. We've then got 11,333, and again, this isn't fully upgraded. Now, the question obviously here is, how do you get these different modules? And you get these the exact same way that you would get any other blueprint, through the black market tech boxes, and in certain cases through the standard generic boxes as well. You can basically find all the same way you would find a variant is how you find a module. Just instead of it being a brand new variant of that ship with sort of a 20% chance to unlock, it's a guaranteed chance to unlock a new module that you can then apply to the particular ship. And as an alternative here as well, the Spear of Uranus actually has an interesting example of this right now. The ship launched with an additional system applied to it that the devs didn't mean to. They actually have given you the ability now to add that back in. You just have to spend 10 tech points to actually unlock that minecart system. It's well worth doing. If you get the Spear of Uranus and want to use it, and fancy using that Minecraft projectile launching array, you can do so just by spending 10 tech points on it, which is not a bad investment, to be fair, because if anything else, it's just giving you an additional weapon that is firing. You've got the bow railgun system, the fortress battery system already on there. That's 2 weapon systems. 10 tech points gets you a 3rd weapon system, which is just additional firepower in like the most brute force way. Now, all you need to do, if we jump back to the ST-59, and to actually use these, if we go back to its assault torpedo system here, you just literally tap on the weapon you want to switch, and then you tap switch, and that's it. That is literally it. You can now go into that new weapon system, you can upgrade its different stats using the weapon blueprints, you can enhance it by coming out that little step further, going back in to the assault railgun system. I can start enhancing this and applying tech points where I want them, and if I decide that actually I don't really like that in the end, I try it in combat and it just doesn't do it for me, I can go straight back and switch it back. There is no time limit, there's no cooldown or anything like that. You just literally choose what you want to put into that blueprint, and there you go. It is worth noting, however, that like other modifications made to blueprints, this only applies when the ship returns to base. If you've got fleets out in combat and you're upgrading them whilst they're in combat, the fleet that is outside of your base will not get any changes. You can put 20 tech points into various different enhancements on a ship. Those will not actually apply to any ships you've already built until they return back to your base, and the same is true for any modifications you made here. So if, for example, you were out killing other ships with ST-59s and you use that torpedo launcher for its anti-ship damage, you then decide that actually let's swap it to the railgun for the additional siege damage, that will not apply unless you bring that ST-59 back to your base, dock it up, at which point it then applies all of those changes. Now, I mentioned that the ST-59 is actually one of my favourite battlecruisers. I really like this ship. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think beyond that, it's an incredibly useful ship. It is one of the highest tanking capable battlecruisers in Infinite Lagrange, and yeah, people say that the Spear of Uranus has similar stats, and it does. The Spear of Uranus has very similar stats when it starts off. However, the ST-59 gets a couple of notable bonuses. First and foremost, the one I always go for is the ship-changing stance. This literally moves the ST-59 to the front row of your formation, meaning it tanks damage more. It is the battlecruiser that is going to be prioritised in combat and by battlecruiser prio targets. Thus, it is going to be your tank. Beyond this, you've then got armor hardening, and you've got energy resistance available here on the ST-59 as well, whereas the battlecruiser, the Spear of Uranus, sorry, the Noma shipping group variant, like most Noma shipping groups, it can get very high armor, but it has nothing in the way of energy resistance, so to speak, whereas the ST-59, when it's fully upgraded, gets an insane amount of armor resistance and energy resistance, and you can then bump up its HP and push it to the front row as well. This is very much the everyman's tanking battlecruiser, and well worth being one of the first ones that you build and apply to your fleet. As a brief look at the others, the Eternal Storm is the Jupiter Industries variant. This, of course, means it has a an ion generation system on the front of it here, an ion cannon, basically, which, if you've ever encountered these in the game, are absolutely terrifying. They kick out an extreme amount of energy damage, which cuts through armor. It ignores armor completely and relies on ship resistance, ship energy resistance, and as I've mentioned, not a lot of ships actually have energy resistance. Noma shipping group ships, for example, are not energy resistant at all. So people flying things like Tauruses and things like that, you tend to be able to just cut straight through them using ion cannons. It's the same with the IO, which is one of the Jupiter Industries cruisers as well. You also get some nice little additions here as you look around. You know, you can speed these up. Jupiter tend to have good evasion built into them as well, and it's just a really nice high-power ship here, and it allows you to, you know, it has a bit more dodge and evasion to it than some of the other battle cruisers, but it's not as tanky overall. The Constantine the Great, this is absolutely my favourite. I love the ST-59, but the Constantine the Great, I love the Antonius Consortium ships, things like the Reliat, the Winged Hussar, the Predator, the Guardian, that kind of thing. I really like how these ships look, and the Constantine the Great is right up there as one of the most awesome. This is, again, it's got an ion cannon here on the front, it uses missiles, it's pretty tanky, it's a great little ship here. I'm looking forward to trying one of these out properly, now that we're hitting that point of our Phase 2 server. The Spear of Uranus, again, this is a high damage battlecruiser with exceptional tanking capabilities if you are only going up against projectile weapons. It falls apart as soon as your opponent has any form of energy weapons under them. I've honestly seen Spear of Uranus is here taken down by just fleets of Tauruses using their energy cannons there. It's a brilliant ship. You just need to make sure that you have something that will take out any enemy energy weapons. I did mention as well that we'd have a brief look at carriers. I'm not going to talk about these too much. We touch on them more in the aircraft video. Essentially, these can be used to carry aircraft, usually aircraft and corvettes, into battle. The interesting thing about the CV-3000 here, well, they call it a high-speed carrier. If you actually look at the stats of it, it's 400 speed and 2000 warp. Before upgrading, that is actually that's cruiser speed. That is moving as fast as cruisers. So you can put this in with a fleet of cruisers, and it won't slow that fleet down, which is just awesome. I absolutely love it. I mean, if you compare that to, say, the Spear of Uranus, you'll see this only has 250 standard, 1250 on its warp, and the same goes down with some of these. Actually, the Constantine the Great's a pretty fast one. But yeah, these are pretty fast. The CV-3000 is a very fast carrier, great for relocating, and if you upgrade the propulsion system even further, well, you can actually have it go quite nicely up there with some of the cruiser fleets as a heavy air support. A great little strategy, well worth running into there. Anyway, folks, that really does kind of wrap up everything here I wanted to talk to you about in regards to super capital ships. We've talked about how to build them, we've looked at how to upgrade them, we've looked at how to unlock them and how to change the different modules in them, and I hope that's useful to you. At this point in the game, by the time you're unlocking battle cruisers, you're probably beginning to look into some of the more heavy city capturing and things like that. These are exceptional ships for taking out enemy fleets. Don't rely on them exclusively. One of the big mistakes I see a lot of people making in Infinite Lagrange at this point in the game is they unlock battle cruisers and they basically wipe out their entire frigate and destroyer and just make everything cruisers and battle cruisers. And I've laughed so hard recently. Our server's become a bit of a war zone, and I've gone out with fleets of just destroyers and frigates, and I've wiped out a load of these fleets of like cruisers and battle cruisers just using that fleet because I'm evasion tanking with the Carillion, and the Carillion is so hard to hit when you're using a battle cruiser. They don't have particularly fast tracking. Most people don't really upgrade their hit rate, so I just sit there and those Carillions like dodge out of the way, and the Carillion heavy cannon variant does insane damage to cruisers and battle cruisers. So yeah, there's that. Don't think that being a bigger ship just makes them flat out better. That is not the case at all in Infinite Lagrange. There is still a good use for small ships later on in the game as well. Just battle cruisers, I see a lot of people go, oh, I've unlocked these, and they pretty much make a fleet of entirely those, and they get absolutely wrecked. Anyway folks, let me know your favourite battlecruiser in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear which one's your favourite, why it's your favourite, and what ships you're looking forward to most unlocking. How are you doing on your servers at the moment? As I said, we're about halfway through our Phase 2 server here. It's been one heck of a grueling ride. I'd love to talk to you guys, so come join Discord. Anyway folks, thank you for listening right the way to the end of this one. Happy sailing, and see you in Infinite Lagrange.